Good morning. I wanted to talk about potentially changing a misperception of control with a horse. When we use nylon halters, when we use just flat leather halters, we are at a disadvantage with our horses. And I think that's why people who primarily use leather halters also almost consistently across the board use a chain over their horse's nose as well, because they recognize that they are kind of at a disadvantage to the control of the horse's nose. Because if you can control your horse's nose, you can control your horse's feet. And if you can't get control of their nose, you have no control of their feet. So first off, I strongly suggest that people utilize rope halters. Now, I know for my English riding friends, we all grew up definitely not wanting to associate with the Western world, but I think that's changed greatly, and I think a rope halter is being more widely seen in English riding barns now. I've even helped incorporate them into Western or into dressage barns. So I know that they exist in dressage barns now. So we can kind of like erase, I guess if you want to say, the stigma or the assignment of a rope halter being primarily a Western piece of equipment, because it's actually not. It's a horse piece of equipment, and it's a very valuable horse piece of equipment. So the part about that is the rope halter has a rope with 2 pressure point knots on it that go across their nose to allow you to gain and maintain control of your horse's nose. It's kind of like the difference between the difference between sitting on a lawn chair that has a cushion or sitting on a lawn chair that's missing its cushion, where it's just got those stripes across it, where after you sit on it for a while, it's pretty uncomfortable, and you get up and you've got lines across your backside. So think of the difference there. Like if you were sitting on a cushion, you could sit there all day, right? But if you're sitting on those support bands, well, you probably won't sit there much more than an hour, and it's a strong analogy, yet truthfully, you could sit there for an hour. But with a rope halter versus a flat halter, they're not going to sit there for an hour. It'd be really unlikely. But once you know that you have control of your horse's nose under almost any circumstance. Now, the other thing is with horses is that if they get their nose to the opposite side of them, you have a much more difficult time getting control of their nose. So you never let the horse get his nose. And imagine like he's exited stage left. He gets his nose. So if you're on this side of him, you always want his nose straight, but even always slightly bent in your direction. Never let him get his nose bent the other way. Because even with a rope halter, you could have struggle. If you don't have a good power stance and you can't plant yourself and stop that from happening, or stop that from turning into momentum in a direction that their nose just turned, you're in trouble even with a rope halter. Even with a chain, So I have, if you're somebody who just really, really, really likes having nice halters, or you like the look of a nylon because you can choose colors or whatever, I have like the solution to that, which is the hybrid halter. Okay, I've shown these before. So it incorporates the ability to use cross ties and have control of the horse's nose. I bought a bunch of these to be training tools, and I did find that they were not a very successful training tool to a very young horse, and the reason for that is because there's no pull pressure. we do have that flat piece across the top of the crown, flat crown piece. So you don't have the ability to help the horse learn to yield to pole pressure. But that was the only thing that I found that I didn't like. I bought so many of them. Every one of my horses has one. I even have one, but if I'm still talking by the time I get down there, I'll show you Logan's, which is, it's a leather one. He's got his name on it, you know, like you see in any show barn, right? All the horses have pretty leather halters, and they all have their nameplates on them. So you are not limited when making the decision to have better control of your horse. You're not limited. And quite frankly, you will look like less of a jerk with a pretty leather halter with a rope noseband than you do with a pretty leather halter and a chain. I'm sorry, I don't know why. I mean, I know that's such an accepted sight and it's seen everywhere, like, you know, everywhere. And it's such an accepted sight that it's just what people do. And I've also seen it in, you know, barn policies, requiring a chain over your horse's nose. So let's just say now we've all agreed that we're going to put our horses in rope halters. We're going to somehow get a rope noseband on our horses. And we recognize that if our horse always has his head straight, slightly tipped towards us or tipped towards us, we're always going to have control of that nose. And then we understand that if the horse tips his nose the other way, he's got a really good chance of getting his nose from you. Therefore, he's got a good chance of getting his feet from you. Now let's give him some responsibility. Because you've proven to them, by using the rope halter, that you have control of their feet. That you have control of their nose, therefore you have control of their feet. Therefore, it's not worth the argument that would ensue if you, if they decided they wanted to go somewhere else. They kind of understand. Just that's kind of why I think some of these barns have the chain policy, because the horses just kind of understand it's not worth the fight. It's not worth trying, because I won't win this one, because it'll be more painful and I still won't get to where I'm trying to go. Rope halters offer that same confidence in you and the same confidence in them that you have control. Now it's time to give them some responsibility. I like to leave a hold on, I'm balancing this on my thumb here. I like to leave... Ooh, you're alright, Tyson. I don't know how that scared you, but you're alright. A sag. So, kind of like, you ever see curtains that go like this, and they're held by tie back? So, there's the curtain, it's held by a tie back here. So here's the curtain rod, and then it has this, like, swag. I like to leave that swag. So imagine my horse's head is the curtain rod, and my hand is the tie back. There's that swag, okay? Probably the best way to describe it if you understand what I'm talking about. If you give your horse just that little bit of swag, your horse will learn his responsibility. You teach him where he should be when he leads with you, and then you give him the responsibility of maintaining that. If he cannot maintain that, then you can become alive and say, excuse me, I guess you misunderstood where I wanted you to be. When we walk, you walk right here, get there, and then I'll give you back your swag. I think if we could start teaching, because basically where I was meaning to even go with any of this is, if we chalk up on our horses at the snap, which is what we teach. We teach children, and I'm not trying to unteach that as much as I am. I'm definitely not trying to unteach that with a flat halter, because yes, our children need to have some kind of control. But we teach our children to hold the horse right here, and then hold, you know, my hands would be lower, you know, but hold the horse under the chin on the snap and hold real tight, you know, white knuckle it, and then hold the extra piece. And then we have kids walking very, almost fearfully as they walk, like like you can see the way they're walking, they're waiting for something to happen. The horses feel that. The horses can feel all that I describe it as, imagine a cat in tall grass after a grasshopper. What does a cat look like in the tall grass? And that's one of the best things that I came up with to help my students recognize what their bodies look like to their horse. And then I always tell them, if something's going wrong, stop first and say, did I look like a cat in the tall grass? If my horse acts fearful or evasive of me when I'm executing something new or even something chronic, is it possible that I look like I'm on the prowl? Is it possible that I look like I'm ready to pounce? Because remember, their biggest predator is a mountain lion. Now, domestic horses have never experienced mountain lions, but they are so strongly programmed for survival that even if they don't know what a mountain lion looks like, they know what the threat of something coming at them in a predatory way looks like. It's just how they're programmed. So, in conclusion, once we have the right equipment, oh yeah, here's Logan's halter. Once we have the right equipment, we can have better communication with our horses. So here's, let's see, pretty leather, right? Got a rope nose, which is just twisted right now because of the way it's sitting. It's got his name on it. Got a leather crown piece, so it's breakaway. It's got its double, and it's nice thick leather. You can have this beautiful halter in any barn, and you can have better control of your horse than anybody who's using just a straight leather halter. Now, we've gotten hold of our horse's nose. We've gotten a hold of our horse's mind, because our horse understands that we have control of their nose, therefore we have control of their feet. And now let's give them some responsibility. Once we start giving our horses responsibility, our relationships change with our horses. Once our relationships change with our horses, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit.